At the beginning of the film, we are introduced to Julia, a waitress concluding her shift. After informing her manager that she has booked an Uber, she collects her wages and departs. Outside, she locates her ride and enters the vehicle. As the journey begins, Julia becomes uneasy. The driver is taking an unfamiliar route. Attempting to remain composed, she asks for water, which he provides. However, shortly after drinking, she becomes disoriented and loses consciousness. The water was drugged. The driver transports Julia to his garage, carries her inside, and confines her in the basement. Upon awakening, she realizes she is imprisoned. In a panic, she rushes to the door, but as she opens it, the man seizes her by the hair, knocks her unconscious, and drags her back inside. Meanwhile, we meet Danny, a financially struggling rideshare driver who shares an apartment with his friend Tess, a security guard. Tess reminds Danny that their rent and bills are overdue, and eviction is imminent. Danny vows to secure money soon, knowing that without a better income, he may be forced to return to his mother's home. Elsewhere, Detective Kinderman is investigating a case that is rapidly going cold. Women across the city are vanishing without a trace. During a visit to the mother of a girl who disappeared a year prior, he finds her inconsolable. She fears the worst. If her daughter were alive, she would have returned home by now. Back to Danny, while on a shift, he picks up a cryptic passenger who asks if he's aware of the missing women. Danny admits he doesn't follow the news. The man then speculates about the possibility of a serial killer. Growing suspicious, Danny demands to know the reason for the inquiry. The stranger ominously responds, "What if one day you disappear?" Alarmed, Danny ejects him from the vehicle and drives off, unsettled. Later, Danny visits his girlfriend Mila, bringing her a gift. She's surprised and mildly irritated, noting he only visits when convenient. However, upon seeing the gift, a packet of marijuana, she softens and smiles. Meanwhile, the killer methodically cleans his car, erasing fingerprints and refilling a water bottle with the same drug, preparing for his next victim. Danny later meets Tess at work, and they commiserate over their financial woes. Their friend Grayson joins them, visibly troubled. He confesses to having had an affair with a married woman and recounts a recent encounter with her unsuspecting husband at a gas station. The guilt is overwhelming. Danny smirks and warns him that karma has a way of circling back. One day, he might unknowingly converse with a man who is involved with his own partner. The comment strikes a nerve, and Grayson vows to change. That evening, Danny receives a ride request. A young woman leaving a bar spots a car and mistakenly assumes it's her Uber. She enters, unaware it belongs to the killer. Danny arrives at the designated pickup location but finds no one there. Meanwhile, the killer drives the woman to a remote area. Realizing the danger, she pleads with him to stop. Instead, he pulls over, climbs into the back seat, and assaults her before she can scream. Danny waits for the passenger, but she never arrives. After a prolonged wait, he accepts a new ride. At that moment, he notices he has already been paid for the previous trip, despite never transporting anyone. Assuming it's a technical glitch, he dismisses it. The following morning, Danny meets Tess and shares the incident. He excitedly explains that he's discovered a flaw in the app. He receives payment without completing rides. Tess, however, cautions him that something more sinister may be at play. Meanwhile, Detective Kinderman is in his office when a colleague questions the status of his investigation. Despite no arrests, he insists he is close to uncovering the truth behind the disappearances. Just then, their chief enters and hands him a report on Danny. The investigation intensifies as authorities begin to suspect Danny's involvement in the recent string of disappearances. The police chief highlights a disturbing pattern. Each missing girl had her final ride accepted by Danny through the Rideshare app. This revelation suggests a recurring link, prompting law enforcement to believe Danny may be responsible for multiple abductions. Elsewhere, the true perpetrator is revealed. In a chilling sequence, he prepares a thermocol box filled with ice before approaching the lifeless body of a kidnapped girl. With surgical precision, he dissects her abdomen and extracts her organs, placing them carefully into the container. He then proceeds to dismember the corpse. This gruesome act confirms the killer's motive. He is trafficking human organs and has abducted numerous victims for this purpose. The following morning, Danny prepares for work when his girlfriend unexpectedly arrives, blocking his path. She insists he spend time with her, even if it means being late. When Danny questions her visit, she reveals she brought him a gift. He invites her inside, and later resumes his shift. Soon after, a young woman books Danny's cab. Before she can enter, two strangers jump into his vehicle and demand a ride. Danny refuses, explaining they didn't book the trip, and forces them out. He then contacts the original passenger, asking her to come forward. However, she mistakenly enters a different car, one driven by the killer. Attempting to make conversation, the woman grows uneasy as the driver remains silent. She asks him to confirm her destination, but receives no response. Checking her app, she realizes her assigned driver was Danny. Alarmed, she demands to exit the vehicle. Instead, the killer violently attacks her, smashing her skull with the headrest. Blood splatters as she collapses, becoming his next victim. Meanwhile, Danny continues waiting for the passenger who never arrives. Frustrated, he attempts to cancel the ride but is surprised to receive payment regardless. Assuming the app glitch has occurred again, he dismisses it and heads home. Before he gets far, police sirens blare behind him. Officers order him to pull over and inform him he's under suspicion for multiple kidnappings. Danny, stunned, insists he's innocent, but is handcuffed and taken into custody. During interrogation, Detective Kinderman presents a stack of photographs, each depicting a missing girl who had booked Danny's cab. Danny is shocked and maintains that none of them ever entered his vehicle. He explains the app's malfunction, which falsely registers completed rides and issues payments even when passengers aren't picked up. He urges investigators to examine his phone for evidence. Kinderman replies that the device is already in custody and will be analyzed. With no concrete evidence at present, Danny is released. In a dark garage, two men approach a caged girl, mocking her. Before they can act, the killer intervenes, warning them to stay away. It becomes evident these men are his accomplices, suppliers in the organ trafficking operation. He hands them a box containing harvested organs, and they depart with their grim cargo. Back home, Danny confides in Tess, explaining the false accusations. Tess reminds him of his earlier warning about the app glitch and insists he should have reported it. Now, Danny finds himself entangled in a crime he didn't commit. Meanwhile, the killer seizes another captive. To silence her, he cruelly sews her mouth shut, then proceeds to strip and dissect her, meticulously extracting her organs. The next morning, Danny calls Mila and recounts everything. She listens attentively and assures him of her belief in his innocence, promising he won't face this ordeal alone. Tess, also present, asks what Danny plans to do next. Before he can respond, a loud knock echoes through the house. It's the police. Panicked, Danny whispers that he's escaping through the back. Tess opens the door, and officers storm in, restraining him. They search the premises but uncover no evidence. Detective Kinderman, frustrated by the lack of evidence, releases Tess and demands to know Danny's whereabouts. Tess feigns ignorance, claiming he has no idea, while Danny is already on the run. He escapes to Mila's house, where Tess soon joins him, reporting that the police searched their home but found nothing. Despite the lack of evidence, authorities remain convinced that Danny is the killer. Shortly after, Danny receives a call from Grayson. Tess immediately warns him not to answer, suspecting the police may be using Grayson to trace his location. Danny agrees and ends the call, deciding to stay mobile to avoid detection. Meanwhile, Kinderman is summoned to the chief's office. The chief orders him to apprehend Danny at any cost, insisting he is guilty. Kinderman promises to have Danny in custody by nightfall. As he exits, he notices two men entering the chief's office and handing over an envelope. Curious, Kinderman inquires about them and learns they visit weekly, always delivering large checks. Investigating further, he discovers the amounts are substantial, suggesting corruption at the highest level. It becomes clear that the chief is complicit and knows the identity of the real killer. Danny is being framed to protect a larger operation. Determined to expose the truth, Kinderman follows the two men to a residence, observing them as they gather supplies and depart. On the highway, he intercepts them at gunpoint. One man warns him to back off, while the other attacks. Kinderman is forced to shoot both. Upon inspecting their cargo, he finds a box filled with human organs, confirming his worst fears. Kinderman races back to the house, intent on capturing the true perpetrator. Meanwhile, Danny, Mila, and Tess spot a suspicious cab they believe belongs to the killer. Mila volunteers to enter the vehicle while Danny and Tess alert the police and follow closely behind. Danny protests, fearing for her safety, but Mila insists it's the only way to prove his innocence. Reluctantly, she enters the cab. As the driver pulls away, Danny and Tess trail behind. The killer drugs Mila and transports her to his garage. Panicked, Danny urges Tess to call the police and rushes inside. Tess contacts authorities, and Kinderman arrives, vowing not to let the killer escape. Two additional officers join the search. Inside, Kinderman discovers Mila's lifeless body in Danny's arms. Grief-stricken, Danny sobs as Kinderman promises justice. Ascending the stairs, Kinderman finally confronts the killer. The officers follow, and Kinderman orders the arrest. Suddenly, The killer lunges and slashes Kinderman's throat. The detective collapses, bleeding out. Denis, frozen in horror, expects the officers to retaliate, but they don't. Instead, they exchange glances and turn their weapons on Tess. A gunshot rings out. Tess falls, dead. Denis watches in disbelief as the truth dawns: the officers are not there to uphold justice, they are part of the conspiracy. Before he can react, another volley of gunfire strikes him down. As he collapses beside Mila, the officers approach the killer, advising him to be more cautious next time, as they won't always be able to cover for him. It becomes evident that they've been protecting the killer all along, operating under the chief's orders to safeguard a gruesome organ trafficking ring. The film ends. Have a great day.